Hi, everybody. Welcome to the talks here at Maison&Objet, and well done for sticking it out, the last talk of the day on the Friday, so that's impressive that you're not already in a nice bar having a drink somewhere. So yeah, thank you. Just to introduce myself, I'm Roddy Clarke. I'm a design journalist and presenter, and today we are looking at the enduring relevance of Jean Royère, and I'm joined by Vladimir Markovic, the founder of Royère and the representative of the Jean Royère Estate. And I think it's a really interesting topic to explore when you look at the work of such a legendary designer and how not only do you protect the work that's out there, but also how do you reimagine it for a contemporary audience. And that's what we're going to sort of delve into today, looking at the heritage and the origins of the work, but also how it sits in a contemporary design landscape. So Vladimir, it would be great for you to start sort of at the beginning, I guess, and explain to the audience sort of your initial connection to Jean Royère. You're the grandnephew of his long-term collaborator and partner, Misha Djordjevic, and now the legacy of both of their work really is in your hands, and it's an amazing story. So if you could tell us about how that came about and sort of the origins of Royère as a brand today as well, that would be amazing.
Thank you very much, Roddy, and it's a big pleasure to be here today and to address you and to share a little bit about our journey and about everything that we went through during the last 10 years. So yes, my connection to Jean Royère is very, very personal and very, very emotional. Jean Royère is part of my family in a bit of an unusual way. My great-uncle Misha left my home country, Serbia, Yugoslavia at the time, in the 50s. He came to Paris to teach and to do his PhD here at the Sorbonne. And he was introduced by a mutual friend to Jean Royère, and they basically became lifelong partners and friends, companions, and really complemented one another as they were both very unusual and interesting characters. So I grew up with both of them, and when I was a kid, obviously I wasn't quite sure who this French person was in our family, but I could feel something very special about both of them, but about Jean for sure, an aura and an energy that lives with me until today. So both Misha and Jean frequently visited my family in Santa Barbara, where I grew up in California. And I particularly remember one evening where we had dinner all together, and Jean was sitting, it was in 1977, in a beautiful house in Santa Barbara with a beautiful view, and we were sitting, the whole family was sitting together, and Jean was sitting diagonally from me. I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And I remember this moment where I caught his eye, and I caught this look where I could, in retrospect, understand that he was in a very pensive mode. And the way I interpret it today, because he was at the twilight of his life, obviously at the end of his career, and I can even say a bit forgotten, because during his prime years, from the 30s to the 70s, he was a star, but the world changed, and with industrialization, with mass production, he was out of the spotlight. And because his work was so important to him, and I think because he also deeply felt that what he did was very, very special, I think he was very, very concerned about how his legacy and heritage would move on and continue. So I could kind of sense all that. I mean, this look lives with me constantly. I can remember it very vividly, and it's, one of those moments that you never forget during your life. It's just one of these powerful moments, and this is what is a driving force for me to continue to respect this work and to give it a new life and to give it a new vibration, if you will. So both Jean and Misha had a deep respect for one another. Jean entrusted Misha to continue his heritage. He deeply trusted my family. I think he did not have his own, so his family, he was basically by himself, and Misha was his partner, and he adopted, and my family adopted Jean in a way, and he adopted my family as his own. And I think he felt that there's an integrity there that could find a way somehow for his work to eventually evolve and continue and to live on after he passes away. What he did, which was very, very smart and not obvious at the time, is he managed, along with my uncle, to donate all his archives to the Musée des Arts Décoratifs here in Paris. And there's a very long correspondence between the management of MAD and Jean and Misha, where it was really not obvious that, you know, during the lifetime when an artist is living, it's not obvious that he's a master at the time. It happened to so many. But Jean managed to donate his entire archive, which consists of over 20,000 plans, drawings, gouaches, photographs, etc., and also donated a few of his iconic pieces that would become iconic pieces, like the polar bear sofa, the lion, the flat coffee table, etc., that are on permanent display today in the Muséum des Arts Décoratifs, which I think is very important because it is within a French state institution that is managing this and that will be there for generations to come and to explore and to research. So it was more than obvious that the heritage of Jean Royère for him was something that he was deeply concerned about, and I feel very privileged that I'm able to give my best shot in continuing this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing, and it's often, you know, when you look at the work of these masters that, as you say, when they're alive, it's not often recognized, and then, you know, once they've passed, their work, you know, becomes hugely popular, and you wish you could see that you wish that they could see that success. But I think what's really interesting is how you've, you know, reimagined the brand as it stands today. And if you could talk to us about that journey and your own sort of journey into setting that up and what led to that, because it's been going now 7 years, right?
Yes, I started coming to Paris and exploring and connecting the dots 10 years ago, and basically started talking to the relevant people on the market. So obviously with the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, with the major galleries, with auction houses, and just collectors and anyone who was involved in a work which now became very big and very known, especially in design circles and especially in the obviously secondary market where Jean Royère's pieces really strived. Which is something, what actually happened is that Jean Royère began to be rediscovered after he passed away, which was in the late 80s and 90s. And then he really was discovered by the design community that understood his immense influence on design as a whole. And he became very popular in the 2000s and 2010s. So I basically just knocked on doors and opened doors and openly presented myself trying to understand what this magic and what this work is all about. I was also at a point in my life where I think I was ready to tackle on heritage, well, ready. I'm not sure ready is the right word because I don't think you're ever ready for that. But since I was dealing with my own family's, my blood family's heritage in Serbia, so I was used to, and I was connecting the dots in Serbia as well, since many things with all the political turmoil were happening, and basically a lot of things got lost over time. So I was connecting the heritage dots of my blood family. And later on, I continued doing the same, basically, with Jean Royère in a completely different environment now. So I was a complete outsider in the design world, but I could intuitively understand, I think, the relevance of his work and the magnitude of his work and the importance of this heritage to continue growing in a way that is respectful of the DNA of the designer and of the man himself, and basically to honor in the most responsible kind of way everything that was done. So it was, first of all, there was a lot of legal aspects that needed to be cleared up and finalized. But then, after a few years, I realized that the best way to understand it fully is to start recreating these pieces in a way that Jean was doing that during his lifetime. And this was something that was really not so obvious to do, because we never wanted to, and we don't mass produce pieces. We want to make, as we want to follow directly the DNA and the intention of Jean Royère himself, these pieces are deeply connected with the craft. So where craft strives the most, well, it was in France. So I decided to establish a company here in France and to start prototyping pieces, connecting with various artisans all over France, and practically to bring back some of these long-lost techniques that Jean Royère used that were not easy even in France today to find, even though France is the leading country, and of course savoir-faire is the strong point of France. So we wanted to give an homage to the craft and obviously to the design and obviously having the heritage. All this put together created something that we think now is a new life of Jean Royère.
And I think it's really interesting because that craft that lies behind the pieces is so intricate to what you're doing now, and I think it's a really important part actually of, you know, how we're preserving such crafts and the skill sets behind the pieces that often, you know, when we're looking at a piece can, you know, be hidden behind the visual identity of a piece. But I think that is a real big part of what you're doing. And how has that been sort of holding, well, firstly finding those experts and then holding on to them?
Yeah, well, we have been very, very lucky to come across some amazing people here in France. And obviously we did a lot of research, but the first person we met and we wanted to recreate one of the most iconic pieces, which is the polar bear sofa, and obviously upholstery and using traditional upholstery was something that nobody really did apart from restoration. You know, everybody uses foam nowadays. So we wanted to follow Jean's footsteps and Jean's heritage and to basically recreate the pieces and produce them in the same manner that Jean did when he was creating them. So we came across a beautiful company called Jouvre in Lyon, and we met Charles Jouvre, who is the founder of the company, who is a very special person, and his eyes lit up. And he just got on board immediately, and we started prototyping the polar bear sofa as probably the most iconic and known piece. And it is this kind of support and help that we got in the beginning. And I can tell you it took us a very long time. It took us 2 years to get the polar bear sofa to where it is today. Obviously using a bit of technology to enhance the process, obviously to work on the comfort and ergonomics, because with these round shapes, it's very, very difficult to get the comfort right. And as we wanted to become a modern heritage furniture company, we were not producing vintage pieces. So in the end, we knew we needed to produce a next level, let's say, Jean Royère, but keeping the DNA inside. So Charles Jouvre is somebody I always mention, who is one of the key people who gave a wind into our back when we started. But then things went on from there, because Jean was working in many different techniques. So we, metal, straw marquetry, woodwork, are all these techniques that Jean used in creating his pieces. And we came across some beautiful ateliers that are in fact, they're not our suppliers, they're our partners today. And we have Arnaud from Creuset and Métaphère here today sitting, who has been a beautiful partner for us, that's been really working together with the teams on recreating the products the way they were meant to be created. And I can tell you that something magical happens. The pieces that we create, they resonate and they have this they have the spirit inside of them, as my architect in the beginning of the project told me. You don't want to just replicate the pieces. These pieces, you need to capture their spirit. So in order to do that, you really need the highest level of craft. But even that's not enough. It's a very long process to understand the patina, to understand the color, to understand all the nuances, obviously to understand the design, the language, etc., etc.
And then adding on to that, you know, if they're being placed in commercial settings, the certifications that are needed and the testing, you know, that obviously probably didn't exist in the form it does today back then. So, you know, updating the materials, and then also, presumably you've updated some of the proportions, or have you kept those as close as possible?
We always keep the proportions intact. What is very important in Jean Royère's work are the proportions, in fact. And what we realized is that there's always that the proportion is always what makes the piece right. And as Jean himself says, that my only imperative is to make it right. So for us, that's the only imperative. But we also understood there's a little quirkiness. There's always something off with the piece that makes it actually right. So we never changed the proportions of the piece. However, there were some pieces, notably chairs. Simply, people were smaller in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s. So some of the pieces, the chairs notably, were scaled up. But otherwise, everything is done from research, directly from the archives, researching vintage pieces, and then just prototyping and testing and, you know, working on the ergonomics, et cetera, et cetera.
And you spoke about capturing the spirit of the piece and the spirit of his work, and I think that is really the key of what you're doing, because his work, there is such a joy that radiates from his work and a sense of playfulness as well. And where do you think that came from? Because a lot of his work, you know, it was in the post-war era. It was, you know, do you think it was about sort of bringing that joy back into people's homes after such a difficult time?
I think that played a big role in what he was doing, but Jean Royère was a very specific case, a very curious case. He was completely self-taught. He did not adhere to any school or fashion of sorts. So he was basically doing his own thing. He was playing in a league of his own, if you will. And what he started doing, and he was one of the first to do, he really colorized the world. So after the Second World War, when there was scarcity and obviously people were very tired from everything that happened, he really brought in the playfulness and the joy and the magic of what life should be like. So I think this played a very important part in the moment. But when you look at the pieces still today, they still continue to do the same. And when you look at them today, they feel as relevant. I mean, at the time, they were probably maybe shocking because nobody was making pieces like this. Today, everybody's doing biomorphic shapes and you know, round shapes, etc. At the time, it was not the case. Things were much more square and not as joyful and playful. So
it is interesting, isn't it? Because we're in a system where we're taught we need to study. We go to university. We're taught the fundamentals of an industry, and then we're told to go and interpret that. But it's about bringing our own slant on it, isn't it? And what would you say to encourage designers to think more outside the box and be more unconventional?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have a very strong intention and to follow your own gut feelings, and not really to follow, but to create your own thing and to do in a bold way and in a brave way what you feel should be done. And this is exactly what Jean was doing. He did his own thing without really caring what people would say. So he was a really very avant-garde during his time, but what we can see today is that he's very, very relevant. And what happened is that the pieces, because at the time they were avant-garde, but today they're very contemporary and very, very much alive. And when you see the pieces, you cannot understand that, for example, this sofa was designed 80 years ago. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. In a way, I think that Jean was a time traveler of sorts. Maybe he had a time machine so he could go forward in time and create these visions.
But it is really the hallmark of an incredible visionary designer when their pieces can sit within any context almost and in any era. And I think that really his work, you know, it transcends those eras and those passing fashions and trends that come and go, you know, and it can be placed in sort of any moment. With such a vast sort of expansive archive that you're working with, how have you selected the pieces that you've reinvented and brought back to market so far, and what is that selection process look? How does that work?
Yeah, first of all, we often joke and we can say we can wake up every morning and we can create a new piece. That's the number of pieces that exist. But in fact, obviously this is impossible because all this takes time, because of the production process, and because each piece is handmade, and because each piece is actually hand sculpted. So obviously it's impossible to mass produce, what we're not doing. So we're working on families of products that in order to have a mix, to be let's say modern furniture company where we can make ensembles. So it's tables, chairs, lighting, obviously upholstery pieces, and we try always to do things that work together and talk to each other and communicate to each other as families. So we are slowly, currently our catalog consists of maybe over 50 pieces, and we are not going to increase at a rapid rate. So we are really going slowly about it, and we're really being careful and considerate about the way we want to continue. So for the time being, we recreated some of the iconic families, for example, the polar bear, the Quasillon family. We started working on the egg family. All these are icons of 20th century design. And we are very carefully going to be adding some additions in the coming years and months.
And obviously you grew up in a house designed by Jean Royère, and you know, there are many iconic pieces, as you say, but do you have some personal favorites of your own, or some that you feel like you've got a more personal connection to?
Yeah, well, I grew up in my great-uncle's house in Santa Barbara that was actually an homage to one of Jean's favorite houses. It was a mix of two houses, actually, Almudaina in Spain and La Forêt de Marly here in Paris. So these were two of Jean's favorite houses that where he exhibited his pieces and just created his universe and his world. And my uncle, he decorated the place. I later on realized he recreated these two spaces, even without Jean Royère's furniture, because Jean's auctioned off all his pieces before the end of his life. He only kept two chairs that are still in Paris now, in my apartment here. So for some reason, he kept these two beautiful little green chairs that I used to sit in with my sister when I was a kid. My uncle, I think, was able to transmit the spirit. I grew up and spent numerous occasions with my great uncle Misha, who was a character larger than life, a very charming guy. He was a professor at university, but he was a great storyteller, and he was telling me about their travels and about just the way they lived. And I especially remember one evening when he just looked at me and he told me, "You know, Uncle Jean, he was such a special, special person." And this stayed with me. I could feel the connection, and I could feel that there's some kind of magic that's going on there. So I think this is naturally embedded in me. I didn't really know it and understand it at the time, but when I started doing the project, all these things started coming back to me, and I started remembering these little things that I lived with, basically unaware that is happening, in fact. So intuitively, I have this, I think, feeling for the universe of Jean Royère and for the magic that he created.
What do you think they'd both say today if they could see the work that you're doing in upholding their legacy?
I'm sorry?
What do you think they'd say to you today if they could see the work that you're doing in upholding their legacy? I mean, there must be, you know, it's an immense achievement that you've bringing it back to, you know, our attention.
It's a huge responsibility for me because of the immense heritage and legacy that Jean left. So this is something that I did not choose. This is something that came into my life in this very unusual way. I can say to make things a bit even more difficult, since we're not blood family, I think my responsibility, and I take this responsibility even with greater pride and with greater care than if I was maybe blood family. So today I can say that I am very proud about the way our pieces are looking, about the way our company is structured, and about the new life that we were able to give to Jean Royère, and really to give a continuation to his heritage. Not only to continue the heritage, but in a way, not only to give an homage to the heritage, but to give it a continuation and to give it a new life for new generations. And I think what we're doing is something that I hope that both Jean and Misha will be happy. I think they're somewhere on a cloud up there, you know, having a drink. Probably Misha is having a Kahlua and smoking a Benson & Hedges menthol cigarette, and Jean is having a vermouth with a Gauloise. This is what he smoked, and I think they're having a ball looking at us down here, struggling and trying to figure things out. But I also feel that every time, as you can imagine, taking on such an entrepreneurial endeavor and protecting this work and recreating a company from scratch, completely organically grown, you can imagine that we had many problems, many obstacles, many issues, but every time something impossible would arise, somehow things would sort out and would be solved. And these were little signs that I think were given to us by the Spirit or by a greater force, by a probably divine force that helped us overcome things and give us a wind in our back to continue. So I hope and believe that they are very proud of us. What is important for me is that I am very proud about what we're doing. I'm proud about our communication. I'm proud about our products. I'm proud about the level of service that we are able to offer to our clients. I'm very proud of the team that I'm working with. I'm proud that we stuck with the intention to do what's right. We did not want to be an Instagram company just to have beautiful photos and just to show and mass sell and replicate pieces. I did not want to sell the rights to a third party. We really wanted to keep it in the family and do it the way we believe it should be done. So I am proud of that, and I know that we're doing our best, and this is what lets me sleep now a little bit easier.
It is, and the passion behind it really speaks for itself. But I think you spoke about protection earlier, actually, and I'd love you to touch on, you know, the actual sort of the reality of that and what that looks like from an IP perspective, and how the challenge that you've had in, you know, certain battles that you've had in protecting the IP. If you could talk us through that, and also any advice that you would have for us in what that looks like. And I know that, you know, from your experience, there's probably plenty of advice you could give to other estates, you know, that have been through similar challenges. But it's a real issue, isn't it? It
is a real issue in the design community as such. It is at times very difficult to prove if a chair is copyrightable or not, because you can say a chair is just a chair. And I think it is extremely important, and I don't believe that, by the way. I think if people design with integrity and design with all this attention to detail and really create something, a chair is not a chair. It's more than just a chair. And for me, it was more than obvious, if you talk about Jean Royère's pieces, that all these pieces cannot be copied. But unfortunately, what we witnessed in the entire world, in the United States notably, was that a number of knockoffs were being offered, which I thought were really disrespecting the work, not only from a business perspective for our business, because we are the real deal. You know, you have the real products and you have the fake products. And of course, we're the real deal, and people understand when they see our products and when they see what we're doing and the way we're operating. Of course, we are the original products. But I think it was a big disrespect to the heritage and to the legacy. So I did take it very personally, and I took a number of I did a number of legal actions across the board, mostly in the United States, In Europe, it is less complicated. I was very fortunate that France very much respects heritage and tradition as such. So registering the rights and protecting the rights in France was something that was a bit of a challenge, but in the end, it worked out relatively quickly, fine. It's because France is a country that respects art and artistry and design and copyrights. In the States, I had to take, as I said, a number of legal proceedings that we all successfully finalized. And today, I can say that the universe of Jean Royère and the IP protection of Jean Royère is well managed and controlled. It's an ongoing process, but it is something that is important to us, even though we don't want to be the policeman, and this is not what we are excited about. But because of the respect and the disrespect that they bring, we need to do it. We also maintain a very close relationship with the vintage market, with the secondary market. So we have a very close relationship with the major actors on the market, the major auction houses, the major galleries, with collectors, and we always try to support and do our best in order for only real pieces, only original vintage pieces to be offered to the public, which I also think is very important, having in mind the fact, well, not only the pricing, but also the respect for the heritage. And Jean Royère has become a very big name, so it's very easy to misuse it. But I have to say that all the actors, all the major actors are really respectful of what we're doing, and they're welcoming what we're doing, and they're supporting us in this protection as well. So it is really a full-time job. It is something that I did directly, and I managed all the legal teams. I was very fortunate to have amazing legal teams both in Europe, France, UK, and the United States. Unfortunately, this is very costly. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of dedication. But we are already in touch with many different estates and sharing our experiences. The way we prove copyrightability in the States for Jean Royère products was you basically strip the piece of the utilitarian functions. So you take a Leon wall lamp, for example, and you strip it off. You strip off the utilitarian use. You take the shades off, the lamps off, and you put it on the wall. And the judge said, in itself, this is a work of art, even without the utilitarian function of it. And in fact, this is the way we proved the copyrightability of Jean Royère's pieces in the United States, but also in other countries. So this does remain to be a very, very complex topic, but nonetheless, I think very important for the design community as a whole. And I wish we would not have to talk about this because, you know, it's in a way, it's stealing somebody's life work.
It's really tough, and even from the other end of the industry with emerging designers, you often see it where they're bringing pieces to the market, and then sort of commercial platforms are stealing their designs. How, they don't have the funds to fight those battles, but is there anything that they can do to protect themselves in those moments?
Well, I would say registering trademarks as much as possible, and this is the easiest thing to do from a legal perspective and the least expensive way. So registering a trademark is something that I would always suggest to young artists to do. And then for copyright, this is a different issue, but at least, and the most efficient and simple way would be to register trademarks.
Yeah, again, it shows the work that's gone into the brand of Royère today, and it's not been an easy ride, I can imagine, and a lot of battles that you've had to overcome. And I think in terms of with people now sort of coming into contact with the work that you're doing, what do you hope that you're sort of embedding into them and kind of what they're taking away from the work? That spirit, as you say, that you spoke of earlier, of Jean Royère. What does that look like today?
Well, we're very excited to show our work to the broader public, but also to the design community. Obviously, we cannot show it everywhere, and obviously, it's very difficult to produce, and our lead times are long, and we're not present. Currently, we're present in an apartment in Paris that is an envisaged apartment that Jean himself would have decorated, that was done by my dear colleague, Jonathan, who's our artistic director. And we also made another dream of Jean's come true, I think, by opening a gallery in New York, in West Soho, that is also a New York space, but with a very Jean touch. You know, Jean was a world traveler, and he had influences from all over the world, so he was quintessentially French. And of course, it's very French, his design is very, very, very French, but his influences came from all over the world and from his travels, notably from the Middle East, South America, Scandinavia, etc., etc. So we made this little twist in New York, and I think we created a beautiful space that breathes a new life, basically. And it was a dream of Jean, we know that for sure, to be present in the States and to have clients in the States and to basically show his pieces in the United States. His last exhibition that he did in Paris in the 60s was an envisaged apartment in Manhattan that he created. So he envisaged an apartment in the 50th floor in a Manhattan building with polar bears and lions and different pieces. So we knew he wanted to enter and tackle the US market, but for some reason he was unable to do so. Even though he opened agencies across the world, I mean, around the world, which is also kind of mind-boggling when you think about it today. So he opened agencies in Egypt, in Lebanon, in Iran, in South America, Peru, Brazil. Imagine in the 50s being able to, I mean, basically he was utilizing the globalization. He was a globalist before globalization even existed. I don't understand how he could manage to do all that without internet, without Instagram, without all these tools of communication, but he did. And he had very successful operations in all these countries in the 50s and the 60s.
It is incredible, actually, when you think of it and reflect on that. And I think, you know, it's amazing how you're maintaining that global connection as well, but also whilst staying so true to the French roots, and everything is made in France.
For sure. This is very, very important for us. We do think that Jean's work is quintessentially French. We do think that the level of the work that can be achieved in France is the highest level of the work. We believe that the French craft is the best craft in the world. And we are very much devoted to supporting this as creating a universe of different artists, different artisans, and really supporting the craft, not only to restore and to stay in the past and to work on museum pieces, but also to be part of a contemporary production using the same methods and keeping these methods alive for future generations to come. And I think France is of course a difficult country, and many regulations and obviously different rules, etc. But I think it is the country, for at least for Jean Royère. If you want to achieve the level that we are achieving, I think France is the only country where that is possible. So it gives me great joy and pride that we were able to put all this together. And we have really become a family with all our suppliers now, and we try to support each other as much as we can, and we want to continue doing that and growing together.
And you've built an amazing team around you, as you've mentioned, but are there other members of your family that are sort of coming into the business to, you know, maybe look at working alongside you to continue on for hopefully generations to come?
I was very fortunate with the team, and as we just talked before, everything is kind of connected, and all these connections, and the way I met people and the way I assembled the team is a story in itself that I will not bother you with now. But I did put together an international young team, and I did want, based on Jean's DNA and the fact that he was such a world traveler and influenced by the entire world, I did not just want to make it a French thing, but to make it an international thing. And that's why I think having international talented people with the same intention that I had join was something that I can never forget and that I will cherish for the rest of my life. To tell you the truth, regarding my own family, I am representing the family, and my family is entrusting me to do this. And I do have a daughter, but I do not want to burden or impose anything on her. I have a feeling that this responsibility is something that you need to, I didn't choose it, I took it on, but I'm not sure that I would like to, I'm actually sure I don't want to impose it on anyone. However, within my team members now, I can already feel that there are people who can, even after me, because I'm a bit of an older guy, that they will be able to continue it and that I will be able to entrust them because of their passion, because of their integrity, because of their knowledge, because of their dedication. So if my daughter wants to join, obviously she's more than welcome to join, but I will not impose that on her.
Amazing, but it's nice to know that it's in it's in very safe hands, and it's amazing the work that you've done. We've got a few minutes left, so I'd love to just see if there's any questions that the audience might have. We have one at the back, actually. Is there a microphone for? Sorry, thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. So a polar bear sofa went for more than $3 million back in 2023 at, I think, Christie's. How many original polar bear sofas exist in the world? Do you know?
First of all, Jean Royère designed the polar bear in 1947, the sofa, for his mother's apartment here in Faubourg Saint-Honoré in Paris. He first designed the polar bear armchair in 1943. And the precursor of the polar is actually this rouleau right here where you can see the curves. Jean worked, he did between 1.2 and 1.3 thousand commissions. He had 1,200, 300 commissions during his lifetime that he followed directly, that were all done under his supervision, so he never edited any pieces. And we estimate that for your concrete question regarding the number of polar bears, a total of between maybe 100 and 150 were ever made during his lifetime.
And how many have you made?
How many have we made up to now?
Yeah, your new episode.
Approximately 30 of them.
And what is the price?
I think it's around 250K.
Thank you. Any other questions before we wrap up? Got one at the front here. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. I also have a question about vintage furniture. You told you're working with galleries in Paris, like Alain Châtel or Jacques Lacoste. But you, in-house, how do you manage the vintage market? You don't want to have a department specialized to this in-house?
So we very closely communicate with the vintage market, so with auction houses and with galleries. And we always try to support each other with the knowledge that we respectfully have. So we have a dedicated person in the company who's constantly researching the archives and who has now an in-depth knowledge about Jean Royère's work. So we're always willing to give our own advice and our own take on, if we can say, the authenticity of the pieces. Obviously, this is a very slippery terrain, and this is more of an estate job, I would say. One of the plans that I have, that I envisage, is also to create a foundation of Jean Royère, where we will have a certification committee that will be composed of very credible members, and we will be able to issue certificates. For the time being, we only give advice, and obviously we have a strong pull as an estate because we are very well respected by all the major players on the market. So we don't officially certify pieces, and this is something that needs to be carefully thought out, and this is something that we will be working on, but this will come in the future.
Thank you. And I have another question about your future project. So you talk about the foundation, but in the next few years, do you have projects you didn't realize yet you want to construct and to realize for your company?
Yes, absolutely. We did not want, when I created the company, the idea was to make an homage to Jean Royère's work, but not only. It was to create to give Jean a new life as a modern heritage furniture company. So it took us 5 years to get to the point where we are right now, where we have stabilized our production, where we are certain that we decreased our lead times. We are certain that we can achieve very high levels of production and service our clients' needs at the highest possible level. So obviously one of our main goals now is to organize our distribution channels, which is something that is an ongoing process for us in order for us to expand worldwide. We think there's a huge demand for Jean Royère in the Middle East. We believe there's a demand in Asia. We know there's a demand in the United States, but we only really touched the tip of the iceberg for the time being. The reason we were not more, if I can say, aggressive, we're never going to be aggressive because we're never going to mass produce, and we cannot mass produce, is because, I'm sorry, it's because we were just not certain that we're able to achieve the level of production that we put ourselves as a goal. So 2.5 years ago, we opened an atelier in Lyon where we control and certify all the pieces for quality and certification. The state certifies and numbers every piece. And right now, we have organized the company in such a way with production, with communication, with logistics, where we are ready to go to the next level. So we will definitely be expanding as much as we can. I don't want to say quickly or slowly, but at a pace that we feel comfortable with. So we do plan on establishing presences in Asia for sure, and in the Middle East in the future.
Thank you very much. Might have time for one final question, but if not, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Vladimir. It's been fascinating to hear about the story behind it, but also the work, and efforts that you're doing to maintain such a legacy today. So yeah, it's very heartwarming to see, and it's really.
Thank you, Roddy, very much for leading this and for understanding it. And it's a big pleasure for me to share with you and with all of you. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to share something very, very personal and dear and emotional to me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.